Hey, Jeremy here. Welcome to the Wampa channel and welcome to the crutches that I will be on for the next 3 or more weeks. Why am I on crutches? Well, as you saw in the short earlier last week, I was trying to stay net positive because I got the initial exam on my leg after the ski accident. I was told torn MCL, torn ACL. So what did I do? I went out, I tried to stay net positive. I grabbed a KFC Double Down, bit into it, made me happy. Mayonnaise shot all over my face. I looked like a fool, but that's what makes me happy. I came out at the end of the day net positive. The next week, I had my MRIs, and the MRIs didn't come back as positive as I wanted it to. Because yes, I have completely torn my ACL. It's gone in my left knee. MCL, surprisingly, is fine. For a ski accident, I was surprised by that. But broken tibia. So that's why I'm on crutches. Femur's good, nice and black. Tibia is white. That means it's full of fluid, full of blood, because the top of my tibia is cracked. So I need to stay off my feet, which means my plans that I have been teasing for weeks to teach you how to stilt walk are on hold for the time being. At least 3 weeks, probably more, because I have to do physical therapy to figure out what I'm going to do next about the ACL. Am I going to be able to stilt walk again? I don't know. I sure as hell hope so. I am going to try to get back up on my stilts. Whether I will be confident enough to wear a full-size heavy costume over guests, that's yet to be determined. Maybe it's time to hand it off to the next generation. Maybe it's time to teach other people how to do it and take another role. But I do want to get back up on the stilts one more time. I do want to have a good formal retirement for the Wampa because I plan on building another one on this channel. Now, in the meantime, while I'm on crutches, while I'm being told to stay off my feet, I need to make content for you. I really can't go out and travel and do stuff. I really can't, do what I had planned. So what am I going to do? I'm going to be filming stuff here in the Wampa Cave and teaching you all the stuff that worked, what didn't work, and the kind of worked with the Wampa suit over the years. I had 12 years standing in that thing, in front of crowds, in front of people. I know everything that worked on it. I know everything that didn't work with it, everything that I rebuilt, and everything that broke. So stay tuned. Here we go. I'm going to teach you. Number 1, the hollow body concept. Now, when I first built a stilt costume, it was nothing but fur and foam. You can see it right here. That giant fur foam costume was, for the most part, a fursuit. It was very hot. It was right against my body. It retained heat really bad. And I thought that if maybe I made a cage around me, I wouldn't have all that foam right against my skin. I wouldn't be retaining as much heat. And if I built everything off of a backpack, off of an Alice pack, I could sit there and then clip the arms on. So if I needed to take a break from walking around with my arms out all the time, I didn't have to let them go and let another person, a handler, come and grab my arms so I can take a break, which is when you're in a very large costume, you need to take breaks. You overheat, you get exhausted because the minute you put your head on, the clock is ticking. So I built it all around a framework, a hollow body, so I can sit there and let go of the hands and reach inside if I need to. I could reach into my pocket, grab a water bottle, have a drink inside the costume. If I took the head, lifted it up, had a drink, pulled it back down, I could try to not break the illusion for the guests standing in front of me waiting for a photo. I would say the hollow body concept worked completely. I think this is one of my favorite things about the costume, um, because if I needed to let go of the hand, if I needed to adjust my straps of the backpack, if I felt like it wasn't fitting right, I could let go of the hands. I could reach in, adjust my weight, pull it forward, pull it back, uh, change where the weight was sitting on my back, and then reach back in, grab the hands, and go back to acting. And the least amount of downtime that you have when you have a line of guests trying to take your photo, the sooner you can get back into costume, the sooner you can get back into the realism and the photo that they want, the better. And what I found is with very large costumes, you have a tendency to have suit up and suit down time, and having the hollow body really cut down on that transition. I was able to get in, pull it on, put my arms in, adjust, and actually be ready within a minute or two. If I needed to take a break, I can pull my arms out. I had 2 little holes right here in the armpits. You can see me with it right here. You can see my arm coming out of the armpit. I could take my head off. I can chug a bottle of water real quick. I can reach in, grab my head, put my arm back in, feed my arm through back to the handle, and right back to acting, right back to taking photos. Hollow body concept, 100% worked. PVC framework. Did the PVC framework work? Yes and no. Parts of it are still in the costume. The back hump is still in the costume. The framework around the forearms is still in the costume. The PVC tubes down the arms and across the back are still there. What didn't work was the whole front cage. I found that over time became very difficult when trying to move your arm across the body and trying to lean over to have this cage in front of you. And all of that framework that was in this original photo, see all of that? About 1/3 of that still exists. All the stuff on the back exists. The big pipe across the back, the pipes down the arm, the cage across the back, the cage around the arms, that's still there. I had to cut a lot of that out just because I needed to move. I needed to have a little bit more acting, and it just became clunky. And you could hear as I was moving, as I was posing, and you would hear the plastic, and I didn't like that. I thought it broke character, and the least amount of sound coming out of it, the better. I wanted to have for a while I had sound effects in it. It would roar, it would do stuff. It was fun. But my biggest thing is when you're suited up, you need to have some realism. You have to have your acting and your movements, and you need to keep character, which is very difficult with a large costume. But I found some of the PVC framework just kind of got in the way. So did it work? Did it not? I would put it under the kinda, because some of it's there, some of it's not. That brings us to number 3, building the costume to be segmented. One of the things that I was thinking was, how will it travel? It's a fairly large costume. How am I going to sit there and have something that has all this framework in it fit within a vehicle, fit within something where I need to travel, fit in a crate to be shipped out to San Francisco for the Adidas shoot? It was a fairly large crate. That's because a lot of it was solid. It had the big solid body. It had the solid arms. It had the legs were pretty much foam except for the stilts. The stilts were eventually sewn in. But my thought at first was to have everything to where I can detach the arms and have the body split down the middle, and then be able to take the stilts out to say if I wanted to build another stilt costume, have the feet separated. Well, one of the first things that I ran into the first time I took it out at Star Wars Celebration was the feet started to drift, and I would have the feet that weren't sewn in start to turn sideways and start to flop under the stilts. That's an absolute no-go in a big costume. So my first modification of the entire suit was going back to the hotel room the next day and sewing the feet together with the legs. Is it something that I wanted to do? No, but that was the first part of segmenting the costume that had to go. Over time, and especially at the end of that convention, I would go back and look at the photos. When I would raise my arms up, I would see a gap here, and that's not realism. That looked bad. I would sit there and lift the arms up, and if you look at the picture from Adidas, I don't like the way the shoulders look. It looks like big old round shoulder pads. Here, there's the picture right there. I didn't like that look. That's one of the photos that really defines me in this costume, and I don't like it because of that. So right after that photo shoot, I changed the shoulders. I cut the plastic out of the top of the shoulders, and I went and sewed the shoulders together to where they were attached to the body. So for the longest time, the costume became a 3-part costume where I would put the legs on, I would put the body on, and put the head on. And that made it difficult to travel. So did having the arms segmented with the body and the legs and the feet and the head and everything work? No. Is it still segmented kind of today? Yeah, it's in 3 pieces. But for the most part, the original plan to have it in pieces did not work. Number 4, using latex. Now, there is latex multiple places on the Wampa. I have my nails are latex. My hands, on the palms of the hands, are latex. The teeth are latex. The mouth is latex. The face is latex. Even the horns are latex. Now, why did I use this? Well, part of it is because at that time, that's what I knew. At that time, did I know mold making? No. Did I know 3D printing? Well, 3D printing wasn't around. But I had a job working at a creature shop where we made a bunch of latex monsters and latex backpacks, latex stuffed animals, latex, a whole bunch of stuff. And using materials like using paper towels and latex and tissue paper and latex and all that stuff, that's what I knew. Did it stick to the reality of it? There's parts of it that look a little rough if you get up close. But with costuming and a lot of stuff when it comes to, movie builds, and, when you get up close to a real movie prop, especially one that's been built before HD, you get up close to some of them and they're pretty rough looking because they are camera ready, which means you have to fix your realism about 5 feet away to 10 feet away. If it looks good from 10 feet away, then it looks good. And that's how I built my costume. I knew that as a big costume, I'm not going to be right down in somebody's face. So the face, it wasn't the best sculpt at the time. How would I do it differently now? I would probably 3D print the face or resculpt it. I did attempt to make a second head at one point, and I just didn't like the symmetry. I didn't like how it turned out. So I never went forward with it. I did over time replace the mouth. I got photos of it here where I sculpted out a whole new mouth. I made it so it opened and closed so it didn't have an opening. So I now have pretty much a puppet mouth on it that works with my jawline or really. All I have to do is move my head up and down and the mouth opens and closes. Uh, Also, my original teeth kept falling out because of the way I did it. I made all my teeth separately. Could I have made the teeth out of plastic? Could I have made the teeth out of another material? Yes. Why did I make them out of rubber? Well, when you're up high, you have a tendency to have people's heads right here. So if I wanted to have fun and bite somebody's head or, give them a big hug, I knew that I wouldn't scratch them with hard plastic teeth. I would hit them with rubber teeth, and it's, guest safety. The claws, same thing. The toenails, same thing. If I knew I was swatting, do you want sharp plastic claws out there swatting at people when your visibility is limited? Probably not. So that's why I used rubber claws on it, because of safety. I wanted people to be safe. So was using latex smart? I would say kind of, because latex breaks down. There are parts of it, like the palms of the hands, that maybe if I sculpted them out of clay and took a latex mold, I would have some good real skin textures on it, because I didn't realize those are going to be so close to people. And people, when it's up on a stand, people get right up close with the camera. That's something I didn't anticipate. When I was doing stuff with the Tampa Bay Lightning or the Tampa Bay Rays in costume, I would watch the guys with the big camera get right up close to the face. And I'm like, no, don't get so close. Don't put it on the big screen. It's not the most, But I got to realize that camera ready for a convention is different than camera ready for a live event when there's cameramen. And for people that are liking your costume and wanting to take photo references, I would have done things differently. And that's why I would like to do things differently with the skin textures and everything the second time around. Number 5, transportability. I kind of hinted on this with the segmented part, but transportability, I found it pretty dang big. It is a big costume. Now, a friend of mine who does a Wampa Costume, he has everything. His is basically a fursuit, and it goes over, the fur is separate from the bodysuit, and he puts it on like an outfit, like pretty much like a lot of people do. He doesn't have the inner framework, so he's able to take it off and the body collapses into a concert case, and it's a small case, and he's able to fit his stilts in there. He's able to fit the soft body and the head and stuff like that, and the hands and my hand things. Now, he's able to compress it deeper than I could. Mine, because of the framework inside, it pretty much took the whole back end of a minivan at the time. I don't have the minivan anymore. I would put it into the back of a U-Haul trailer, or I would had to build a pretty large crate to ship it out to San Francisco. Is there ways to make it different to have it more transportable? Now, one way to do it would be to find a different way to frame it on the inside. One thing I would like to experiment with is corset boning, like I saw with Adam Savage did with his Totoro, and he also did it with the Revenant Bear. He used bamboo and corset boning. He used corset boning for the bear. He used bamboo rings for the Totoro. I was looking into spring steel corset boning, and I think that plus some other stuff would work fantastic in compressing the Wampa suit. I would love to experiment with that and see if it holds its shape. I really like the way the back looks. Everybody loves the way the butt looks. I made it have some big old juicy cheeks, as they like to say. It wiggles, it shimmies when I walk, and people love the butt. I did that on purpose because, you know, not every costume is from the front. I wanted to make it anatomically correct at that time, and that includes having a butt. That includes having, you know, all the, you know, when I made it the first time, I used anatomical charts. I used, you know, where muscle groups would be, where I still have some of the sketches, but they're, oh, you know what? Right here. Let's see. Do I have them in here? No. They're in another folder. But I do have some of the original sketches of all the muscle breakdown. Maybe I can find it and add one here. If not, yeah, I'll try to find it. But that's the original way that I've tried to break down muscle patterns to try to, you know, have the realism. But because of that, and trying to keep all of the muscle forms where they're at, you kind of have to make that firm. There's other ways to do it. I've seen them make muscle suits where you sew, you know, the muscles all together into patches, and then it moves with the body. That's not how I did it. I did it with larger hunks of foam, and that foam made it hard to transport because it's solid. Would I have done it differently? Yeah. So transportability, that's kind of on the kindest too. I was able to get it to California via freight. I was able to get it all the way to Chicago and Michigan via car, and I've been all over Florida with it. So was I able to transport it? Yes. Did it take up a lot of space? Yes. On to the next one. Number 6, let's talk about screen accuracy and realism. Now, you're your own worst critic. You can sit there and look at something that you have created and see every flaw in it. But, you know, really it comes down to public opinion. The public loved this thing. They loved that it was big and wide and imposing. And, you know, when it comes to costuming and Star Wars costuming, especially with the 501st Legion, they want screen accuracy. They want something to look exactly down to the last little greebly to look exactly like it was on the screen. The Wampas are kind of different. You know, the Wampas tend to, it's a very difficult costume to make. Lucasfilm failed at it. Lucasfilm tried 4 different times. There's 4 different heads that were made for it. You have the original bug-eyed one, which is kind of ugly looking. You got the bat nose one. You got the puppet. And then you have the special edition puppet, you know, head. So how do you make something screen accurate when Lucasfilm can't even decide on what it looks like? So you kind of have a tendency to make something that's an amalgam of what works and what doesn't. It was basically based off of the special edition head, but you know, because it's a soft face and everything, and when you're in a body and it kind of squishes, the face goes like, you know, that, and he kind of squints, and you know, it's all right. There's parts of it that I absolutely love. I love the muscle structure. I love that I tried to make it, I tried to hide the human form while being in stilts. One thing that I really don't like about stilt costumes, and something that I came across with my first costume, is a lot of times you have a tendency to have long legs because that's where your crotch is, and then you have your leg, and then you have your stilt. So a lot of times you have a tendency to have long legs, and then when you're up tall, and then your arms, you end up getting what I call the Harry and Henderson syndrome, which is, you know, you're big and tall, you're on risers with your feet, either stilts or risers or something to make your feet taller. But then your hands, the Wookiees have a tendency to do this too. Your hands don't match the proportion of the length of your legs. So you have a tendency to have little short arms and long legs. I did not want that with the Wampa. I wanted to make it to where if I stood on the stilts, my crotch wasn't at the crotch. So I wanted to bring the crotch down, because if you look at this guy here, when you look at that, where's the crotch in proportion to the legs? How long are the arms in proportion to the legs? Well, the legs are a little bit stumpier than the arms. His crotch goes further down. So when I'm in my suit, the crotch of the suit is actually mid-thigh. And my feet are about at his knee, and then my stilts go down. As for the arms, inside, my hand is right here at the top of the forearm, and the arm goes further down. And I tried to make it so I just knocked all those over. I don't have a Wampa with a segmented elbow, but when I grab the handle, which is inside the arm here, I pull the elbow joint, and then I'll go ahead and try to squeeze the hands, which that's coming up, the hand mechanisms. I'll let you know if those didn't work or not. But that's, yeah, if you look at that, and if you think of a stilt costume, look how long the arms are, look how short the legs are. So you're gonna have to break up the human form. And he's got the hump on the back, it's got the head moving forward. So yeah, that's part of realism that I wanted. I'll go ahead and put him right here. Is he gonna stand up? Nah. That's funny. I didn't own one of these as a kid. I had so many Star Wars toys. It wasn't until I was an adult that I got him. But yeah, the realism is part of it. You want to sit there and act in front of people. You want kids to come up and think that it's real. I've had so many kids just want to come up and run and hug it, not knowing that they're hugging somebody on stilts. The illusion was real to them. They saw a giant costume and didn't realize that if I run up and push on the stilts, I might tip them over. But, you know, I was able to bend over. I was able to growl. And actually, if I felt somebody that was, you know, uncomfortable, I would talk. You know, some of these costumes, and sometimes people are in costume and in character the entire time. Sometimes it's my handler talking. My handler would let people know that it's a person in a costume sometimes, and if I needed a break, you know, that's part of it. You know, you want realism. You want realism if you're doing an event, or you know, if they're putting you on camera to do the Tampa Bay Lightning thing or the Tampa Bay Rays. They want you out there, and you're the character, so you have to be in character. But if I'm posing with little kids or posing with families, I'll sit there and I'll speak to them. I'll break realism just a little bit, so I know that they're safe. And if they feel uncomfortable underneath me, I'll let them know, like, hey, I won't move. I'll stand still. You come up to me. That's something that you have to realize in these big costumes, is because a lot of people are taking a photograph. Do they hear you speaking in a photograph? No. If they're taking video, then I'll act. Then I'll make noises. That's when, you know, Chewbacca will roar. That's when stuff like that. And, you know, some of the Wookiees, they'll stay in costume the entire time. But with the Wampa, my time is limited. It's big, it's hot, it's heavy. As soon as that head is on, the clock is ticking until I overheat. So that brings us to the next one. 7. How the heck did I stay cool inside of that thing? Did I put air conditioning in it? Did I put fans? Did I put any sort of cooling system? I tried just about everything. I tried fans in the head. I tried this squirrel fan that has a wet sponge on it that had a tube that I could shoot it right up into my neck. I tried fans in the back of the hump of the costume. I tried cooling vests. I tried a vest that you would dip into ice water and wear that inside. I took little thin ice packs and I would fit that in between everything. What I found is all of that stuff works for about 10 minutes. And then you're just blowing around hot air inside. Then your ice packs melt very quickly because it's very hot inside. So did the cooling systems work? No. Did the cooling systems help? Yeah, for a little bit. My first troop was with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and with the stuff with the 501st Legion, they would say, hey, here's a stormtrooper, go put him out in front of the crowd for 45 minutes. Not realizing that somebody in Stilt standing still for 45 minutes with a head on, yeah, I was wobbling. I was overheating. But I was in the main concourse of a stadium. So I had to suck it up. I had to deal with overheating, and I was trying hard to stand still and to pose and try to not complain. Over the time, they understood the limitations of the costume and they worked accordingly with me. But for what it is, it's a showstopper. It's you had something that just came in that was huge that people would run and want a photo with. So I tried to stay in costume as long as I could, with the head on as long as I could. The going time for a lot of costume is about 30 minutes to an hour in costume. There were times when I could make it about 20 minutes, and then my handler would sit there and say, hey, he needs a quick water break. I would turn around. Sometimes I would be able to have a water in my pocket. Like I said earlier, I would reach into the body, take a drink of water, and try not to take the head off. But if I was moving from place to place, I would take the head off. If I was moving large areas, I would try to take the top of the body off and just keep the legs on and get to where I needed and had somebody carry the top body. And that was because if I went from point A to point B, full suit, head on, body on, like I did the first time at Star Wars Celebration, I walked all the way from the parking lot to the spot that I needed to get photos with. By the time that I got to where I needed photos, I was exhausted. I was done. I had people stopping me every 3 feet. Oh, can I get a picture? Can I picture? All right, I'll put the head back on. Oh, can I get a picture? I'll put the head back on. What I learned is, part of the realism is, yeah, I'm trying to keep realism at my photo spot, at my location. When I went to go do stuff with Lego, I told him, I was like, okay, I'm going to walk up, I'm going to pose, I'm going to talk to you about my limitations, I'm going to sit there and talk about my range of motion, what I can, what I can't do, what with the acting I can do. With Adidas, the same thing. They saw this big costume and they thought it was a creature. They thought I could move everything and pose. And I said, not really. It's kind of like a puppet. You're only limited to what you have built into it. But once the head was on, my clock was running, and it helped over time. I got better over time. It changed. I've only tripped in it once because of visibility. And I started to pass out once from overheating because I fell backwards into a wall, but that snapped me out of it. But for the most part, I just learned to deal with the heat. Is it the smart thing to do? No. Was it better than my first costume? Absolutely. The hollow body helped because I was able to get some air, flow inside, and it didn't trap the heat in with foam right against my skin. So, but when it comes to AC, when it comes to cooling systems, when it comes to all these other things, there are newer stuff out there. There's, if you sit, I could probably wire up a whole harness and just do air conditioning inside. But that's another thing with the realism. You're hearing the fans going. You're breaking the realism if they hear some, you're walking up to a giant creature and you're hearing fans. It's one thing that if it's a stormtrooper, it's another thing if it's a creature. So you have a tendency to just deal with the heat. Having the soundtrack and the MP3 player where I had a loop of roars and everything, that kind of helped mask the fans for a while. But I stopped using that, and then I stopped using the fans, and then now there's really nothing in it. That brings us to 8, the mechanical hands. Now, one of the more popular videos that I made when I first built this suit was the hand mechanism, and I used rubber tubing, some wire, and foam, and I made it so there was 4 rings, and each ring would pull a different finger. Now, that rubber tubing created a lot of friction, and it took a lot of strength to pull the fingers down. And what I found is, as I had my hand out, I can curl the fingers a little bit, but the thumb always stayed rigid. So when Adidas was like, all right, yeah, go grab this lawnmower and push the lawnmower, I couldn't. I was able to put a hand on it. I was able to do the other hand like this, and then they caught me as I was relaxing the other hand because I was trying to raise this hand up, but then they caught me because I ran out of energy. And that was the big issue with the hands, is most of your energy is trying to lift these hands up, and then you're trying to lift these hands up and use all your arm strength, and then you're trying to squeeze some hands at the same time. While it just became very, very difficult to do both at the same time. Mechanical wise, it really didn't work. I would say that's a no. Now, is there ways to improve it? Well, one thing, as I said, is if you're pulling 4 different rings to do this, and you're not using some sort of block and tackle in there to increase the strength of your pull, that would be smart. Another thing that I would like to do is just do a single pull, one single squeeze, and what it would do is it would pull all 5 fingers, but also twist the wrist. This right here, I would be fine with just this and not having the hands move, because one of the biggest things that I've learned while wearing this thing is everybody wants you to swat. You want to hug and you want to swat. And if you were just doing this and that was your single motion in your arm, that would be enough to pull people in, to hug people, to swat at a costume. So a single motion would be a lot smarter than doing this that I tried. This would be easier when all of your arm strength is holding the arm up and you're pulling a single handle and it swats the fan. That would be great. There are ways that YouTube's a wonderful thing. I've learned a lot about hand mechanics since I built that 12 years ago. Would I love to try to make it to where it's servos, to where I can sit there and have a handle and push a button on the thumb of the handle and have it do this in a single move? That'd be great. But again, what are you dealing with? You're dealing with the sound of a servo right next to somebody that you're posing with. Plus, you deal with the durability issue. As you're traveling and as you're transporting it, you're constantly moving it. You know, that's the biggest worry about making really, you know, complex mechanical hands. I've looked at so many of them that I just absolutely fell in love with. One of them I found when it had full mechanicals with the hands, and each finger didn't pull an individual finger. What it did is it would sit there and one finger would do this, the other one would do these, and the other one would do these. And if you think about that, this with the middle finger and the thumb, that, think about the way a hand works, these always kind of move together. These go together too. So you could point, you can pinch, and then you can grab. So you had all three mechanics with that, and I fell in love with those. And then they had a wrist strap. So as he would pull, and as he would pull his wrist, it would also work and twist the wrist. And that's where I came up. That's where I fell in love with the idea of the wristband. I know a couple ways to deal with, you know, watching robotic arms and watching stuff about, you know, the wires and everything that go inside them, the brake cables and everything. And I would love to build one of those. And that would just be a whole series of just figuring out a good giant mechanical hand for large costumes. And that would go along with, you know, what I would like to do is try to reinvent the way my shoulders work, because just like the realism in the mechanical hands that you can implement that I failed to do the shoulder because I stuck with a single joint. And you lift it, it's a single joint. You turn it, it's a single joint. But that's not how the shoulder works. The shoulder has two other mechanisms. You also have the rise, that's part of the shoulder. And then you have the crossbody, where it isn't just a joint here, it's a joint here at the clavicle. You can move across your body, and there's a two-part turning right here. I figured out how to do that mechanically with a mock-up that I have back there. I'll probably, you know, show you my mock-up soon. It's not the prettiest. It's made out of a desk lamp, but it works because part of the other part of it is this part. Now, if you look at any of the steady cams for people that are cameramen that do sport events, their cameras are lifted up by a parallelogram and springs, and it keeps it steady. I think something like that up here in the forearms would help reduce the amount of strain lifting the arms, so you have more muscle strength to do a hand mechanic. If I'm able to lift it and it's mechanically enhanced here in the shoulder by springs or by something, or by elastic or something, I don't know, probably springs, that would help the realism with the hands. And you know who did that? Disney did. Project EXO. Project EXO did their hand mechanics, and I was addicted to watching the progress of that, because when you saw it, the hands looked like Wampa hands, and the feet in the test costume that they used were Wampa feet. I was really hoping that they were going to have a Wampa in the parks, but what did they debut it as? The Avengers Endgame Hulk in the spacesuit. And what did it look like when it was fully done? It looked like a Ken doll. The hands really weren't working, and the arms they weren't able to, like you could tell that they were spring loaded and the resting point was here. And then the actor would lift them up and lift them down, but then it would rest right here. That would be something that I would have to deal with. Like if I really, my thing was with walking is your arms are your balance point when you're on stilts. When you have big, large arms, you can sit there and stand on one foot because your arms, just like a tight wire walker, a tightrope walker, were your balance pole. So I could sit there and use the arms as a balance point. But if they were constantly always out here, like Disney's, you know, do you have the ability to bring them out here to be a balance point? Well, that's something I would love to experiment on. That would be another whole build series on trying to get a proper shoulder mechanism. Wow, this video is getting long. I still have 2 more to go. Durability. Durability. How has it held up over 12 years? As I said, parts of it have broken. Parts of it have been replaced. I've had to replace the fingernails. I've had to replace the mouth. I've had to replace the shoulders. I've had to replace the handles. The forearms have been rebuilt. I had to constantly go in and repair the back part, because as I'm sitting here loading it up into a back of a van, load it up into a back of a van, load it up in the back of a van, it broke over time. So I needed better materials, and that's why probably as of right now, I've had to turn down 2 different appearances with it. I turned down a commercial shoot. I believe it was for the latest EA game. What is it? Jedi? I forget what it's called. I'll put the title here. They wanted me out in California in 1 week's notice to go shoot a video, and I didn't think it held up. It was in bad shape. It's 12 years old. Another thing that I had to turn down was they wanted, for the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back, they wanted a bunch of Empire Strikes Back costumes on display at San Diego Comic-Con, and they really wanted my suit out there. I just didn't feel like it was in good enough shape 12 years later. Well, it would have been 10 years later, and that Comic-Con got canceled by COVID anyways. But yeah, they wanted it on display, and when you take the world's cameras and all of the online media and all of the bloggers and everybody just going up there and going, hey, there's this giant Lucasfilm display, and there's the Wampa, and it's mine, and I'm like, well, mine's not as screen accurate, mine's not one of the film ones. What are the expectations going to be of the crowd? They're like, hey, this doesn't look right, and it looks, I can see flaws here and I can see flaws there. And I don't know, did they want, I just had to let them know, like I can't do it, and I just didn't feel confident enough to put it on display. Would I still do an event with it? I still have the idea for 1 more event and then to retire it, but I won't know about that until closer to February. And I gotta know if my knee's gonna work, if I can ever get on stilts in a big costume again, especially putting people underneath me. I'm afraid I'm gonna get the yips, and hopefully I'll be able to strengthen up my leg over the next year, with or without an ACL. Let's see, I don't know. But as for the suit and durability, it's kinda, maybe, no, I don't know. I mean, it's still standing, it's still in one piece, it still looks like a Wampa, but it's in rough shape. To close, what's the impact and influence? Did it work? Absolutely, astoundingly, yes. It has made me who I am. I am Wampa Dude. It is what everybody knows me as, that or wearing half of it. But they know that I was the first one in the 501st Legion to get approved. Because I was approved, a lot of others were approved. And what was told to me 12 years ago is, yeah, we don't do puppet costumes. We don't do stilt costumes. We stick with stormtroopers. We stick with what's known and what's capable. And I was able to break that mold. I was able to make a giant costume, and for them to sit there and go, wow, it can be done. And I've influenced a ton of other people and coached a lot of other people to build one and encouraged them and built a reference library for this costume that is, you know, every single behind the scenes image, every single, mechanism that was used on the inside. Pictures of the actors with and without the heads on, pictures of the costumes with and without the fur on, pictures of the muscle structure underneath. I was actually able to go and see the special edition Wampa in person and realize how much more skinnier it is in proportion as mine. Mine's a thick boy, as they like to say. Mine's thick. If I built a second one, will it be as thick? Probably not. It'll probably be skinnier. I want to make one that's completely screen accurate in stilts, that's mechanically sound, and still sticks with what I did the first time, and that is prove what Lucasfilm wasn't able to do, is that you can have a full-size stilted costume fit the anatomical, proportions of a creature with hiding the human form. And I think I kind of did that, and the crowds loved it. The advertisers loved it. The guests at the conventions, if I walked by in that thing, they would come out of their booth and, hey, can I get a picture with that? And or they're walking back and forth. I've had lots of people come up to it that just like, they saw something magnificent. They saw something huge. They saw something that they haven't seen before. So when they see somebody that has created something that big, artists appreciate other artists. It didn't always have to be in costume. I put it on a stand and just put it in the corner of a booth, and people would still line up to take pictures of it. So yeah, I think the impact of having a suit like this was huge to who I am and who I identify at myself as. Makes people happy to see it. It makes people in awe. When I show pictures of people of me in the costume, especially this one right here, of me sitting in the locker room at the Tampa Bay Rays, of just me in the suit without the head on. Oh my God, that thing is huge. How do you do it? Well, you know what? It's a storyteller. I love it because I'm a storyteller. How long is this video? Because I'm a storyteller. Have you probably clicked off of it already? A lot of people probably have, because it's just me in front of a wall talking. I have some photo references, but I love to talk. I love to tell stories. And you know what? This eventually is going to be a story. It's what I do. I like to take what I've learned from other people and create a legacy based off of what I've picked up off of their legacy and made it my legacy. And now I'm making my content to help you make your legacy, which is, that's what it is. That's all of what this channel is. It's trying to make it to where I'm taking what I've learned and the lessons that I've learned and what I found worked and what I found didn't, and putting it on film and putting it on YouTube. So if you are watching this, and I just realized that my tassels are all off. Wow, look at that. That thing was off the whole entire video. But I want to sit there and teach you what I learned, what I liked, what I didn't like, what worked, what didn't work, what kind of worked, and taking all of those lessons that I've learned and that I've talked to you now and trying it again. And I can't wait to try these again and to put it on camera and to help preserve my legacy. I'm going to create content. I'm going to preserve legacy. I ask you to do the same thing. Create your content. Preserve your legacy. And with that, enjoy.